Hello, everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Walls and Ceilings, roofing contractor, and building enclosure. Today is May 26th, 2020. I hope everyone had a nice Memorial Day weekend. I am here today with Art Eisner, the editor of Roofing Contractor, and Trent Cotney, CEO of Cotney Construction Law. Trent is on the front lines of battling legal issues for all contractors operating 14 offices across the country with over 40 attorneys and 4 special customer service representatives. If you're not following Trent on social media, make sure you do, because he always has great nuggets of insight to offer. We truly appreciate your time, Trent, to answer all the questions that have come up throughout the week as we move through this pandemic. But before we start, I hear that you've got some exciting news to share about. Trent, can you fill us all in?
Sure, absolutely. So for a long time, we've had really great relationships with our Canadian contractors, Canadian friends. And like, Jill and Art, we go to various meetings and trade shows and Best of Success and other things like that. And we end up seeing and running into these people, and it's like family. You create these ties and these relationships. So it made sense for us to start looking in Toronto. We have opened an office in Toronto. Cotney Consulting Group is there now. Cotney Construction Law is also joining that office. We have hired a lawyer that can practice in Ontario and Nova Scotia and throughout Canada. And we're looking forward to expanding that office. We're also getting involved with a lot of the local roofing associations. So very excited about this. We've had great relationships already with our Canadian friends, and just look forward to kind of expanding from Toronto. We've got some additional plans to expand into Calgary and Montreal. So looking forward to the future. And as always, I should start with saying, Jill, Art, it's always a pleasure being here. I really appreciate you having me on. I look forward to our weekly discussion. So thank you for having me.
You bet, Trent. And that is exciting news. Obviously, if you can, from what you know about working with Canadian contractors, a different set of laws there and different regulations too. What do they face a lot of the same problems that roofers here in the United States do?
They do. I mean, from a contractual standpoint, it's amazing the similarities between, if I were to review a commercial contract here and a commercial contract, they're very similar. Okay, some of the terminology might be different, but a lot of the terminology is the same. Their OSHA is completely different up there. They designate some responsibility on the employee, where here in the States, it's all employer. But I can tell you, the stuff that we've heard, we've had some great conversations. We've done some webinars up there. And they're facing a lot of the exact same issues that the contractors down here are facing. And it doesn't matter what facet of construction you're in, whether you're in roofing or you're, any type of vertical construction, it's almost the identical set of issues, trying to navigate what the various, shelter in place rules are, trying to figure out how to deal with employees, trying to figure out how to be safe in this environment, how to sell in this environment. So what's interesting about a lot of construction is the means and methods of construction are pretty similar regardless of where you go. There are government regulations that differ, but one of the things that we're seeing, especially, Toronto is right there. And one of the things that we consistently see is so many companies just crossing that border, going back and forth. With the border closed, that's changed things a little bit, but you'd be surprised the similarities between the two.
Okay. Well, let's try and focus back on what's happening here in the United States. States continue reopening. It seems like it's almost in full effect in a lot of areas after this Memorial Day weekend. Any additional concerns popping up in the last week since we last spoke, and then talk about what's on your radar?
So one of the things that we've really tried to do is either through our lobbying group or through just staying in touch with local representatives and senators is making sure that we keep construction open and working. And the last data that I saw, which was early this morning, is that COVID-19 cases are on the rise in 18 states. And you saw the news just like I did over the weekend. There are some pictures of mass parties and beaches filled with people. There's going to be a big spike in the number of people that are infected. So what I don't want to have happen is I don't want a knee-jerk reaction where government shuts everything down again. and then we're in the same place where we were. I understand there's always a balance between safety and business, and obviously I'm always pro safety, but at the same time, I think having construction out there on the front lines, making sure that we're continuing to keep people employed in a safe manner is paramount for our industry. And I will always advocate for that, because I think, unlike a lot of other industries, it's possible for us to socially distance more. We're not around our customers on a face-to-face level as much. Most of the work can be outside, depending on what type of work you're doing. If you're in the interior, then assuming there aren't other trades around, then it's possible that you can isolate yourself as well. So I would anticipate that what you're going to see is some harsh statistics that are going to come out in the next few weeks. And you may see some states pull back whatever restrictions they opened up. And then based on those stats, here's what's really interesting is I think that some of the states that have not opened up as much may decide to back off opening. So I think that's going to be something that you're going to continue to see. You know, one thing that's real interesting, Jill and Art, is we face this issue where construction pretty much is an essential business everywhere. There are exceptions, but what's a problem is that a lot of the vendors that these contractors use may not be. So we've had issues where jobs are ongoing and contractors are facing delay damages, claims, or things coming upstream from them, from their customer, because they can't get a hold of the consultant that needs to come out and approve stuff, or the technical representative for this manufacturer isn't allowed to travel, or the infrared guy that shoots, you know, whatever can't come out. And that's causing these additional delays. So it's interesting to see sort of the domino effect that some of these closures has even on construction.
And it says something about how intertwined a lot of these businesses are, and how even if contractors are ready, can get back to work and have the crews ready, they may face other delays, unpredictable delays.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so as we touch on that, what can you talk about the next 60, 90 days, peak season here for roofers? What can they look forward to, say, if we do see that big spike and have to see a resurgence of these stay-at-home orders?
So I think there's going to be, obviously, this is the peak season for roofing contractors. It ends up being rainy season in a lot of different areas, especially where I'm at in Florida. You know, this is prime time right now. We had a good storm just this weekend, and we've already seen some good storms. There's already been some tropical disturbances. So I think anybody that's along the Gulf Coast, Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, you can absolutely anticipate a very strong storm season. I would make sure that you have everything buttoned down at this point. What I mean by that is take into account that you may have supply chain issues, you may have vendor issues, you may have crew availability issues, and you need to come up with contingency plans now. Have your crisis management plan, your disaster preparedness plan in place now, because ultimately I think that's going to really help you navigate the storm season and kind of get through the next 60, 90 days. One of the other things, you know, I had 3 calls this weekend on this, Art, and this is something I track important issues based on the number of inquiries I get, and it's pretty clear that this has become a critical issue. And the issue is when a worker gets sick, you know, what are your requirements to notify other people that are around you? Can they continue doing work? How do you navigate all that stuff? And one of the things, as we continue to open up, and there may be a resurgence in some of these places of COVID-19, is you need to recognize that, you know, we saw the scenes of all these mass parties and beaches. Some of the crew was probably in those parties and beaches, and they may be infected. So you have to plan and account for the fact that some of your crew may be down, some of your jobs may be stalled, you have to account for this, and you have to have a backup plan. If at least one, if not 2, you'd need a plan B and a plan C in the event that you can't access labor or your normal supply chain, especially during storm season.
What are we starting to see some of the effect of the budget cuts that municipalities or school districts that are facing in the wake of this pandemic? Is that starting to worry anybody or worry you?
So I would say all the work, as far as the school districts, that work has been bid a while ago, and that work is being done now. And a lot of times what's happened is because the schools have been closed, normally they would do it over summer. They've accelerated that and pushed that work back. Okay, what I'm concerned about is the next go around. Okay, I've said, and we've talked about this in past conversations, there's a price to pay for these handouts. There's a price to pay, and we will pay them. And the states in particular, you start thinking about things like, lack of taxes, the cost of unemployment claims, the cost of closures, the cost of additional, maintenance because of COVID-19 and safety precautions. And at some point, the coffers run dry. Okay, and when that happens, there's always going to be service work. There's always going to be repair work, maintenance work, that kind of stuff. It has to happen in order to maintain facilities. But the big projects, okay, those are the ones that if they can put on hold, they may put on hold. So I think we need to kind of look maybe, I'd say 4 to 6 months from now of what the future bid work looks like, because all the stuff that was going to be done has already been bid probably even before COVID-19 started. So I do anticipate that there's not going to be any money. I mean, I look at a place like California, for example, that has signaled again and again and again that they're having financial problems. Las Vegas declared an economic disaster. And the state of Nevada. So I think that once that happens, if there's no money to do improvements, then there's no money to put out for bid. There's no projects to put out for bid. And I would think that definitely within the next 4 to 6 months, you're probably going to see a reduction in new construction type projects that normally would occur.
And so there's really any opportunity for contractors that may be able to take advantage of that, the time now, or do you anticipate districts, everybody will just kind of shut down on that new spending?
I think there will still be some new construction spending, but what I saw is the same thing I saw back in 2009, 2010, which is before you'd have 3 bidders, now you got 10, and people that used to just do residential are now doing commercial government work. So the competition becomes a lot more fierce, and you've got these bids that aren't estimated correctly, they're underbidding. You see a lot of this stuff happen. So that's starting to pick up. There's this panic tendency that a lot of contractors do where they try to bid everything on the street, and that ends up getting you into more trouble than it does not taking the work in the first place. And the reason I say that is that contractors, a lot of times when they think about stuff, and I'm being stereotypical, I'm not saying every contractor, but contractors often, they go for the gross. They go, okay, this is a $10 million job. This is a $100,000 job. I get this job is going to increase my gross $100,000. Well, what you haven't taken into account is that job will probably cost you $75,000. Once you tag on all the admin cost and the additional delays and everything on there, it's probably going to cost you $110,000, okay, if you finish on time. So just because you're raising your gross doesn't mean you're raising your net. What I would recommend any contractor to do, if you're going to start looking at bid work, put your big toe in first. Don't dive in, because understanding government work, making government work profitable is an art. And it's not something for the timid to just jump in and do it, because you'll end up getting burned. So especially federal work. Okay, federal work, you really, really have to know what you're doing because of all of the requirements. There's enhanced Davis-Bacon requirements where you have to provide certified payrolls. You have to navigate the federal regulations on purchasing, FAR rules. So my advice would be absolutely look at any government work that's out there, but make sure that you have the capability of doing it. Don't use this as a learning opportunity. This is not, you don't want to be learning government work during a pandemic. That's not the time to be doing it.
Okay, fair warning there. Talking about that and how all this money, will come to bear. Perhaps that's why we saw an increase on roofingcontractor.com, a surge in traffic on your last guest column on the importance of debt cancellation for roofing contractors. Do you want to share a couple quick highlights of that piece again? And
Sure.
if there's something contractors can start lining up for this summer that they want to keep in mind?
Sure. So there's really 2 points that I tried to hit home in that article. And when I'm writing these things, I'm trying to, I recognize that nobody likes lawyers, and lawyers have a bad tendency to talk over their intended audience. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put all that information in a sifter and give a couple of take-home points. So the 2 take-home points that I would hit is that debt collection often requires being creative. Okay, a creative debt collector will get you paid. And I was talking to my son the other day, and we were working on a project that he has due this week. It's his last week of school. We were talking about that before we started. And I gave him this example. Okay, there's a wall. If you just keep hitting that wall, ultimately you may break through it, but it's going to take you a long time, and you're going to be beat up as a result. So why not just walk around the wall? Okay. Same kind of thing you can apply with, collecting debt. A lot of times being nasty, sending demand letters, doing all that stuff is great, and that may get you paid. But you want to think about how to attack from the flank. So there is a mechanism, a 1099-C debt forgiveness. The IRS tax rules say that it's primarily utilized by financial institutions, banks, credit unions. They have to issue a 1099-C, or there are certain requirements where they have to issue a 1099-C depending on forgiveness or whether or not they're going to do it, okay? There's nothing that prevents another creditor from issuing a 1099-C. So if you're an independent business, you have the capability of doing that, okay? Recognize that why would you do that? Okay, why would you want to do that? Well, if I'm a bank and I have forgiven your debt, okay, I've written off your debt, I'm not gonna come after you and collect it. Well, that hurts me, right? And it hurts me both for tax reasons, and it hurts me because I didn't get that money. So I'm going to send out this form, and what this form says is that you have responsibility from a tax standpoint. You may have responsibility for that amount of forgiveness, because basically I'm giving you income by forgiving your debt, okay? Now, just take a step back. It depends on your tax situation. There's a lot of tax rules. Again, I'm not a tax lawyer. I'm just giving you the general advice on it. So one mechanism that might be able to work, depending on where you're at and what you're doing, is considering using that in the event that you've got somebody that's just not going to pay you. Okay, you got a deadbeat customer, and at least you can understand that, hey, you've done this formally. Once you have done that, it's difficult for you to go back and kind of change over. There's some case law that says, well, you might be able to, but once you pick a course, you need to kind of go that course. So either you're going to collect it, or you're going to label it as bad debt, uncollectible, and you're forgiving it, okay? The other thing to keep in mind is that we are now in the zone of debt forgiveness for Paycheck Protection Program loans, and it is very complicated, okay? It requires, intimate knowledge of the quadratic formula and a slide rule to figure it out, and it is very difficult. So one of the things that we have been asked a lot is, will I get a 1099-C notice from my bank if my loan is forgiven? And the answer is no, you're not going to get it by statute, okay? By statute. And here is what's interesting, Art, is this has been a moving target since day one. It's very frustrating for me as a lawyer to not know what the game is. I've always been a believer, you tell me what the game is, I'll play it, right? Here, it's a bouncing ball. Okay, I got to follow the ball, and every single week they're coming out with new guidance. What's good about this part is that's actually spelled out in the statute. So I feel pretty comfortable saying that it's going to be pretty difficult for them to change course on that one without some significant upheaval. So as it stands right now, for those of you that are applying for debt forgiveness, it is truly debt forgiveness, and they're not going to be your bank cannot issue 1099-Cs based on that. Okay, that's where we stand as of May 26th.
Okay, and right, like, as you say, it could be a moving target. I did want to also ask you about technology in the industry. I know you're on the cutting edge, not just with your business, but you're working with contractors that are also on the cutting edge. This pandemic has really accelerated the use and really the importance of technology in the industry. How would you advise contractors to be careful, and what do they need to keep? What are some of the most important things they need to be aware of?
So I would say probably, put my lawyer hat on. The thing that I'm always most concerned about is security and protection of, customer and employee data. So there are a lot of shiny penny technology, software out there. And you need to make sure that before you pick up that shiny penny that you know exactly what it's going to do, what are the safety features, what are the security features, is it something that's sort of tested and it's out there, or is this brand new technology? Technology is absolutely critical. Look how we're communicating now. I didn't really know too much about Zoom until the pandemic. Now it's like every other word is Zoom. So, whether it's this or GoToMeeting or Teams or Hangouts or whatever the program is, understanding and creating, the security necessary to protect your data is critical. The other thing that I would really recommend contractors do is recognize the importance of analytics and data. I have always been a big fan of analytics and data. Okay, I don't understand how to do it, but I love to have it interpreted for me. I love to be able to see it. And I think of it like this, Art. If you have, we've had to transition. I'm not going to use the word pivot because that's one of those overplayed words. I'm not going to say that. We've had to transition into figuring out how to do things differently. You can't go and knock on somebody's door anymore if you're a contractor, right? So wouldn't it be great if I had the analytical data to figure out how to get ROI to the max on every single marketing penny? Okay, wouldn't it be even better if I had an AI component that could tell me exactly where I needed to go and how I needed to do that? That's the kind of stuff that excites me. And I think that's one of the things that you're going to see is the ability of analytics and data to predict the future. Okay, and that's if you are a cutting edge contractor, that's where you're heading. Okay, the day of doing stuff, 2019 way, that's gone. That's gone. And I think we're entering a new world that depends on technology. Okay, the contractors that are able to embrace it effectively, have it integrate effectively, because integration is always a big issue, and use that are going to be the ones that are going to make quantum leaps in their revenue. I'm convinced that that's how it's going to be. I can't imagine having to do door to door right now because nobody's going to answer the door, right? Even after this, you're going to answer the door. So you've got to figure out new, better ways to estimate, better ways to engage your customers. And I think technology is going to drive that.
Okay. Thanks for the insight, Trent. Jill, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Thank you, Trent. One of the great resources you've put together at Cotney Construction Law is the COVID-19 Protection Kit. Can you take a minute and explain more about this? I think it's important everybody hears.
Sure. Let me see if I can share the screen here. Okay. So if you go to our website, cotneycl.com, right when you click on the front, there's a COVID-19 link, and this kind of tells you what's involved. So what we did is when this thing started, we wanted to be able to provide a kit that had sort of an all-in-one capability. And what this has is it's got all your safety stuff in it. You get toolbox talks, you get sign-up sheets, you get job site preparedness and response plan. But the most critical part is you get all of those HR policies that you need to navigate this sort of new world order that we're in now. So everything about, that you have to know about paid sick leave or, making sure that you're engaged in proper safety protocols in the office to paid time off, all of that stuff we've included in this, and it's a pretty well-rounded package that you get for $300. So it took our guys probably 2 days to put it together, but I think it's been very beneficial for people to kind of go through it and figure stuff out. And when you go to our website, if you go, you have the capability, you see on the left side, we've put up everything from, the guidance posters from OSHA, both in English and Spanish, to CDC guidelines. We have all kinds of other stuff. You can hit on the left, all the articles, great articles that we've done for Roofing Contractor Magazine, and other articles that we've published just ourselves here on the website. And all those resources are available here. So feel free to go to cotneycl.com and check them out.
Thank you, Trent, for the great information. It's always an honor to speak with you and have you speak with us every week. And thank you everyone for joining us today. If you need to reach us, go to the Contact Us tab on roofingcontractor.com or wconline.com. And please reach out. Let us know if you have any questions for Trent or for any of us at either Walls and Ceilings or Roofing Contractor. And make sure you subscribe for free to our e-newsletters and our digital editions. But most of all, everyone, please stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time.